trickling in as they come. Y'all, my brain. They'll be coming in, and we'll let them in and get everybody muted and go ahead and get started. So happy Monday. Clearly my brain is definitely feeling Monday morning. I got in the shower this morning for about 2 minutes and then my hot water went out. So it was definitely a Monday morning for me. That is not a good time. So I am so glad that you all could make it. I know it's a really busy season right now with testing. And we are just so grateful that you have carved out the time to spend an hour with us this morning. We are going to be talking about those top 10 noticings in grades 3-5 from the 2023 standards. If you were with us last week, Mandy walked us through the K2 strand grade band and how those shifts have been made and how you can start working those into your instructional practices. And we're going to continue on with 3-5. So the first thing, some introductions. My name is Brenna McCormick, and I'm the secondary ELA Education Associate in the Office of Assessment and Standards on the standard side. But my background and my teaching experience includes elementary and middle school. And so I am tackling 3-5 today, going back to my roots, and I'm excited to spend a little time in the elementary world. So I have my colleagues with me today. I have Mandy Hawker, who is the Elementary Education Associate. She is on high alert. Should I say anything wrong? Right? I've told her, I said, you're going to step in because you've been in this world a lot more than me recently. So she's going to be monitoring the chat, giving any answering any questions or giving any additional feedback as needed. I have Tabitha Hughes with me, who is our middle level education associate. She's going to be helping with letting people in and watching the chat for us as well. And then Casey Prince Harvey, who is our humanities support education associate and a former high school teacher, so ELA teacher. So she's here to help us out, and she will be dropping some links for me. So if you need anything, feel free to put that in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like you to introduce yourself if you don't mind. Put your name and your district and maybe what grade you teach or grade you serve if you serve more than one grade. If you'll just pop that in the chat real quick, let's see who we've got in the room.
It says sent, so we'll see.
Okay. Oh, there. Okay. Hello, friends. Got some literacy coaches, reading coaches. Oh, lots of coaches today. Excellent. Oh, look, our Sylvia Lee from a curriculum specialist is with us today. Thank you. Hey, Amanda, Aaron. Lots of familiar faces and names. Thank you for joining us. We're super excited that you are here. Hey, Sandra, Allie and Laura. Awesome. All right, Casey's going to drop our landing page in the chat for you. There is space there for you to take notes, but also even if you prefer to take notes on paper or you're going to take notes later when you rewatch or whatever, the links that we're going to use today are also embedded in that note catcher. So you are welcome to go ahead and open that. And then finally, we're going to pop our attendance link in the chat. So if you will please just take one moment to fill out the attendance, let us know that you are here. That's going to help us with our data collection and who we're serving across the state. So, hey, Becky, good morning. So Casey's put both the attendance and the landing page in the chat for us. And as you're filling out that attendance, hey, Jean, I'm going to give us a little preview of our purpose for today. So my purpose is to provide a lens for recognizing some of those most noticeable shifts, additions, and clarifications in the 2023 ELA standards for grades 3 through 5. And I like to think of this as a lens because lens focuses and clarifies what we see. It's going to enhance our understanding or perception of the image that we view through the lens. And I think this is a powerful analogy when we're discussing the new standards because we really want to clarify these ideas and concepts and shifts and changes that have happened and really focus our perspective on what we need to do moving forward to best serve our 3 through 5 students. So that is the goal for today. So I want you to consider this. If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. And so think on that quote for just a moment. And then I want you to think specifically through one of these three lenses. So through planning, instruction, or assessment. And I want you to respond in the chat how that quote relates to one of these three lenses: planning, instruction, or assessment. You can also unmute if you'd like. You can unmute or put it in the chat. Thank you, Karen. Yes, so reflecting on instruction to prepare for the differences. Planning. Yes. Oh, Aaron, I love that. You know, it's easy as teachers to get into a silo, right? But collaboration in a collaborative culture is where the magic happens. Yes, using old assessments, old lesson plans, old are not necessarily going to be aligned with these new standards. Absolutely. Be purposeful. Everybody, if you've heard me talk before, you know my favorite word is intentional. And I think that really looking at these differences is going to help us be more intentional in the way that we plan and instruct and assess our students. All right, so let's hop in. Thank you for that. So these are the 10 indicators that we are going to go through today. You don't have to write these down or memorize them. You can use this QR code. If you have not already seen the infographic for this, you can scan that there, or Casey can put the link in the chat for you where you can pull up the 3-5 infographic. We're going to go through every one of these 10 indicators, and you will get an instructional strategy or support to assist you with the implementation of these new indicators. So that's a lot, and we're going to be moving quick. So put your listening ears on, right? And know that you always will receive this recording, and you can go back and listen to it if you feel like you might want to do that. So we're going to start with the foundations of literacy. Starting with fluency, foundations 4.2. So there's a few things that I want you to notice. Expectations for reading fluency extend into 4th and 5th grades, and this is a new indicator for those grade levels. Another question that we've gotten frequently is, what is appropriate rate? What does that mean? You want to base that on the fluency scoring system used in your school or district. And another point to note is that your grade 3 expectations have shifted to include oral and silent reading. So the language has also shifted from prose and poetry to a variety of text. And notice that in 2015, it says successive readings, whereas your 2023 in 3rd grade does not. So just a couple surface level differences there for you to take note of. Now, when we are thinking about how to instruct on fluency, one strategy to use is this idea of scooping. This is a strategy shared by Louisa Moats, who was one of the authors of Letters. This method helps students improve their phrasing and supports the idea that ideal sentence reading is smooth. So what teachers do when using this model, if you've never used it, would just to begin with a written sentence. And so as a fluent reader, the teacher would model how he or she would identify several words to string together. And then they'd visually mark those scoops with curved lines. So you can see on the example here, we've marked some scoops or how we would phrase that and where we would take pause. The teacher would tell students that we'll be grouping these words together in appropriate phrases, and then move your finger along those lines as you're reading. Teachers could pre-scoop sentences or have students mark them up on their own. Casey is going to put a link in the chat for you if you want to see this strategy live and in action. There is a great resource video for that. But if you think about scooping, Fern pushed her chair out of the way and ran outdoors. The grass was wet and smelled of springtime. Think about how that actually might impact students' fluency. Look back on these indicators. How could scooping impact fluency? Feel free to unmute or put that in the chat. Excellent. It's absolutely going to help with comprehension, gives them a better understanding of that expression. The example from here that I showed, when Angie Neal does this presentation, she always talks about how when you scoop that and you say, Fern pushed her chair out of the way and ran outdoors, that's showing her urgency there, right? Letting them know where to express and really what's happening here. Gives them a phrase to focus on at a time. Very good. All right, Foundations 4.3 is decoding. And you can notice here that expectations for decoding strategies extend into third grade. If you don't know, decoding is that act of sounding out a word using knowledge from your graphemes or your individual pieces. So let's look at an instructional strategy that would help with decoding. We actually have two here. We have a video that I'm going to show you in just a moment. But we also have your word family wheels of sort over on the right hand side, just a quick example of that and how you can change just the beginning letter and it makes that different word. Now, one part of Foundations 4, it's 4.3b, ask that students decode words by analogy. Now, when I first read that, not coming from a foundational background, I thought, oh, analogy, like, fruits are to vegetables as da 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 da. And that's not it, right? Mandy had to teach me that that's not what we mean here. So, really, what we mean by analogy is that we're recognizing how the word or word parts may be similar to another known word or word parts. So, I am going to show you a short video. We probably won't watch it all, but I'm going to show you this video and then we'll discuss how this might help with decoding.
Jonathan, we're going to do another practice here and really look at some of those word families again. And we're going to look at the AN word family here. And it is because they rhyme when you put a new sound in front of them. So with the AN sound here, let's make some words that will rhyme and be in the same family. So what words can you think of that would have an AN at the end?
Man, and.
Good. Let me have another one.
And.
Pan.
And.
Good.
And.
Fan. Mm-hmm. And you notice that all these words rhyme. Man, fan, pan. How about another word?
And.
And. Good. Can.
An,
With a B, you have ban.
Ban.
Good. And with your T, you will have
T, Tan,
good. And an R makes it
An,
good. Ran. And with a P,
Pan,
good. Now you have pan.
Lan,
With the L is lan.
and
And with
Van,
the V,
Van.
ban. Good. So, Jonathan, we did the letter family of AN. Now let's try new words with the ILE. Aisle. What words can you think of that we might make out of aisle with the letters in front? What sounds and letters would we put in front of that?
Tile,
There you go. Tile. How about another word?
the aisle, Vial,
File. I like that. Good one.
Nile,
The Nile. Okay, good. Nile.
File,
File. Good.
Pile,
Pile. Good. With a P,
Rile, or
the R makes it rile.
Rile.
Good. Anything else? How dial? Now, the sounds are absolutely correct. Dial, because this is aisle, this is a D for dial. But that actually isn't how it's spelled. So here in English, we don't make it easy on you, but the sounds were correct. Okay. Anything else? Can you get fancy and give me a couple?
All right, I'm going to stop us right there. So as a coach or maybe a in classroom teacher in grades 3 through 5, what do you think about this particular process and how it may assist students in decoding? You can pop in the chat or unmute yourself. Yes, Denise, some of our students really still need this. And I know I introduced myself as the secondary support person, and I'm actually working on a secondary Foundations of Literacy support document right now that I'm really excited about because it's not just 3 through 5 students who might still really need this, right? Yes, practice is transferable to all struggling readers. Yep. Great for multi-language students. Absolutely. Yep. Thanks, Becky. So it's definitely a strategy worth putting in your pocket. But Foundations of Literacy can be scary for some people because it's new. It's new for all of us. And
Listen, we're going to do another
I'm
practice here.
interested to know, based on those two shifts and maybe some of what you heard in Mandy's webinar last week, I want you to look at our word wheel of emotions here, and I want you to choose 2 words to describe how you're feeling about this shift to the Foundations of Literacy strand, and then give me an explanation. Share some thinking in the chat. What are you feeling? Why are you feeling that way? Maybe that can give us some insight into what supports we offer next. And you also are welcome to unmute. Excited, yes. Look at these positive words. I love it. Optimistic. Yay. Ecstatic, excited, happy, hopeful. Wonderful. Thanks for that positive. Hey, and don't worry if you're like, ooh, my word was terrified, anxious, worried, but optimistic. Yes. Melissa, that's a very valid point. How many of our 3-5 teachers are actually trained or will maybe need additional support? I think you're exactly right, and that's very valid. So, absolutely. Joyful, courageous, yes. Open to learning more. LaShonda, that's all we can ask for, right? It's just teachers who are open to learning more. So thank you for that. Okay, so what support is available that was a great segue. It was like y'all knew what was coming. We have the glossary, obviously, step one there. If you're like me and when you first looked at this, and maybe even still now, and you're like, I'm sorry, phonemic what, grapheme what, phonics, glossary is a great place to start just to get some of that foundational knowledge. We do have a Foundations of Literacy support document that is very thorough. And along with that, we have a supplement called the Indicator Aligned Inventory for Word Recognition. That is exactly what it says. It's aligned to our state's standards and indicators to help teachers identify where the gaps are in the Foundations of Literacy strand with individual students, and then where do we go next. We also have a great summer webinar series coming up on the Foundations of Literacy that Mandy will be leading. If you know there are 3, 5+ grade level teachers in your buildings who maybe don't have that background information, that webinar series is going to be an excellent place to start. And as a bonus, we have recently been given approval to give recertification credit for webinars starting in the summer. So bummer for you right now, but yay for summertime, because we will officially be able to give you some recertification hours for those webinars. So we hope that you'll join us for that. And then again, like I mentioned a moment ago, we do have a Foundations of Literacy support document for secondary on the way. And I included that here because I think that might apply to your 5th grade sometimes, your upper elementary students, early middle school students as well. So just wanted to let you know that that is going to be an additional option with, my team may pare this down a bit, but I think right now I have like all the way through L appendices of resources. So so make these days. So hopefully that'll be a helpful tool for you. So let's hop into applications of reading, talking about plot development. So a few things to notice about AOR 1.1. In grade 3, the 2023 expectation is to explain, whereas it was describe/explain. And it also focuses on the characters' development rather than the plot's development. Grade 4 now includes setting, and grade 5 specifically includes conflict. So just a couple of noticings there. I want you to thumbs up or comment in the chat if you have ever seen some version of this plot diagram. I see some thumbs up. I see some yeses in the chat. Oh yeah, I used this myself in when I was teaching middle school, and I've seen it in just about every grade level, right? And inherently, there's nothing wrong with using a plot diagram like this. But I have to ask, why is the plot diagram not enough, right? So let's take a look at the indicators and look at the rigor expectations. At what point, what grade level are students asked to identify? And you can see the definition for identify on the screen. But at what level, what grade level are we asking students to identify parts of a plot? Kindergarten, right? Kindergarten first, okay? JM, yes. All right. Now look at 4th and 5th grade expectations. They're asked to explain. If we look at the definition for explain, that'd be 4th grade, to make an idea and or concept clear by describing it in detail. And then 5th grade, analyze, much longer definition, right? Where we're exploring text critically, considering key and literary elements such as craft, structure, purpose, vocab, diction, perspective. It goes on and on and on. And of course, you'd have to look through that definition and see, well, what's grade level appropriate based on the indicators for 5th grade. But you can see there's a huge difference in rigor there, right? What happens if we never move past the plot diagram or the plot map or the roller coaster with our 5th grade students or 4th grade students? What happens? We never get to that analysis. We never get students to that next level so that when they get to middle school, when they get to high school, they're able to do things like evaluate and critique, right? And I'm so guilty of this in my middle school classroom. We'd have that plot diagram, and boy, they could tell you, oh, that's in the rising action, that's in the fallen action, oh, that's the climax. We could do all the things, but we weren't talking about, just like Becky said, those connections, those relationships between characters and setting and conflict and why this makes this happen. Yeah, we're absolutely not teaching to the rigor of that indicator. The vertical articulation is so important with 2023 standards and helping teachers break down that verbiage, even though we know that, rigor isn't dependent upon verbs. It's a great place to start. And helping teachers realize, filling out a plot map doesn't always meet the expectation of rigor. All right, let's look at 5.1, which are literary text structures. Lots of stuff highlighted here. A few things to notice. Grade 3, students are explaining rather than identifying or describing. And in addition, they're asked to notice how sections of text contribute to the overall structure rather than describing how each part transitions. Grade 4, students are asked to compare and contrast structural elements of specific types of literary text. In 2015, students were asked to explain how text structures provide that overall structure. Now we're comparing and contrasting the different elements. Grade 5 actually closely aligned with the 2015 RL 12.1 with minor changes in language, such as like sequence versus series or narrative versus story. So that is an excellent example of how resources can be shared between grade levels to attend to some of the shifts that have been made. Okay, so if you look at 5th grade AOR 5.1 and look at RL 12.1, we've got a lot of similarities. So one of those places where it's a great place to look to just revise what we already have. All right, so the instructional practice here, let's look specifically at 4th grade indicator. We have compare and contrast the structural elements of literary text, and it gives us the examples here, narratives, dramas, and poems. So the first thing I want to do is check the glossary. Let's make sure we understand the intent of that indicator. I can find compare and contrast in the glossary, as well as literary text structure. And in the glossary, the text structures outlined are narrative, poetic, and dramatic. So if we look at narrative, it tells us some of those structures, chapter and paragraph. Poetic would be line and stanza, and then dramatic, act and scene. So you may use a graphic organizer like this, provide students with an example of each literary text type, and then have them take the word bank at the top and just sort those text structures within each of the types of the genres. And that's the contrast part. How is a narrative different from a drama, different from a poem? Then we still have to do that comparison. So you might give them some questions. How are the structures in narratives and dramas similar? You've pulled out what makes them different. Now let's talk about what makes them similar. How is a chapter like a stanza, or a paragraph like a stanza, or an act like a scene? What are all these things? How are they similar? Now, if you needed to support some learners in your classroom, you could always pre-teach vocabulary or connect this in some way to prior learning. And if you wanted an extension, you could use a narrative or drama or a poem that all tell that same story, and then ask students to explain which structure was most effective in telling that story. Why is this story better fit for a poem rather than a drama, for example? AOR 8.1, the author's use of language. few things to notice. In grade 3, this is a new indicator. So grade 3, this is definitely one that you will have to make sure you pay attention to. Grade 4, you're determining an author's use rather than identify and explain how the author uses. There's an addition of literary information and informational and multimedia text, and demonstrating knowledge of word relationships to better understand the words. Grade 5, you're determining an author's use rather than citing examples of, recognizing and explaining meaning of figurative language, and demonstrating knowledge of word relationships to better understand the words. Overall, it's just more explicitly focused on the application, the relationships, the understanding of the author's use of language. So if you look at maybe like your vertical articulation with indicator insights, which is one of our support documents, you'll notice that this particular indicator does have insights. They give us additional information about what students have already learned. So if we look at the insight says to go to AOR 1.2 for the types of figurative language students are expected to know at this grade level. So look at kindergarten. That's when alliteration and onomatopoeia are introduced. Second grade, similes, personification, and idioms. And then third grade, metaphor and hyperbole. So by the time we get to fourth grade, students already know all of these figurative language pieces. So we don't necessarily need to see an assignment like this. Look at the indicators again for this assignment and tell me, why is this not enough? If I'm a fourth or fifth grade teacher, it's below grade level, right? This would be within that identification, which is exactly, Denise, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. And the standard expectation goes beyond just identification. And y'all, again, hear me say, I am guilty of this. When I was in the classroom, boy, we loved picking out some figurative language and telling me what it was, right? And it does ask for you to explain what technique is being used. That gets it toward appropriate rigor, but we don't want to stay in that place that asks just for identification. We always want to make sure we're moving it toward the why, the relationship, the understanding, how would it be different if. We want students thinking beyond identification. So my question is, what is one instructional takeaway that you have about the AOR indicators that we explored? So what's one thing right now that you're thinking about now that we have looked at AOR 1.1, 5.1, 8.1? Moving from identification to more analysis, challenge students to think more deeply. Yes. And I do want to make sure to note that it's not analysis maybe every time, but it's really just, what does the indicator say? What does the indicator require? Always going back to the grade level indicator expectation, because at that grade level, that's what we're expected to teach, right? So helping teachers be more aware of that grade level expectation. Yes, Angie, making sure assessments and instruction are aligned with the rigor of the indicators. Absolutely. Zooming in further with the standard expectations. I love that. Rigor doesn't just mean bigger. I like that. Excellent. All right, let's hop into research. We only have one big shift for research, and that's pretty much for everybody. is that there's a shift from general inquiry expectations to more explicit research expectations. We've got one standard with 5 indicators. So just take a moment to look at each grade level progression here. You can see that in grade 3, a couple of those indicators don't even start yet. You can see in when we're talking about findings, we're grouping, then we're determining credibility for something that's provided, and then students might not necessarily be provided that source anymore, but they still got to find credibility. Notice that there's short research for inquiry, particularly at the elementary level. Not everything has to end up in a 5-paragraph essay. Lots of different ways to assess students' research skills. So the instructional practice here really is just the support that we have available. There's 2 things I want to show you. The first is our research support document. If you have not already seen it, this is just a snippet, some examples from that, that you are going to get in the research support document. It's 4 categories. One of is types of evaluation, for example. You've got a list of how you could evaluate a source. You've got your terms and definitions related to research. You've got guiding questions to help you as students are researching, and potential grade level expectations. So what does this look like in a 3rd through 5th classroom? Casey put that in the chat for you to go back and look through later. There are lots of really excellent resources there. I will tell you it's being updated, and in June-ish we will be re-releasing this document with K2 expectations as well. Even though they're not indicators for that, we all know that our K through 2 students are probably some of our best question askers we have in the building. I know my 4-year-old asks a lot of questions. The other thing we have, if you have looked through our vertical articulation document, you may have noticed that research is formatted a little bit differently than the other strands. Most strands go from English 4 all the way down to kindergarten per indicator. Research strands does each indicator by grade level. So you would see like, you'd see, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, all for grade 1. And then you'd have them all for grade 2, all for grade 3. But what Casey's about to put in the chat for you is a version that is the same as the rest of the strands. So if you want to look at it as a true vertical articulation from English 4 down to kindergarten, we have that document for you in the chat. So if you want to see how those expectations progress K-12 per indicator, that document is in the chat for you. So what's the impact of this shift in research? How will the shift from general inquiry expectations to more explicit research expectations impact teacher planning and instruction, student grade level learning outcomes, college career and military readiness? Choose one of those 3 prompts to respond to in the chat. So you'd put like number 1 and then tell me how does it impact teacher planning and instruction, or number 3 and how it might help prepare students for college and career readiness. Take just a moment. Yes, love it, Karen. That has been, I think I've said that every time I've had an opportunity to do so. If there is a way to have teachers vertically plan, make it happen. So crucial. And cross content connections are so important. We actually, this is not a link that I have, but if one of my team members will find the content connections document and put that in the chat for me, we have a resource that aligns the overarching expectations to each of the other 3 core 4 content areas. So we'll pop that in there for you. Improves our learning outcomes. Teachers are going to have to be very intentional. Yes. Excellent. And y'all, we're rocking and rolling, moving right on to communications. So our written and oral communications. This is a lot. Take a minute. This is C.4.1, developmental appropriateness has been adjusted for our grammar expectations, right? So you can see there's still a lot of them, a lot of expectations. And if you look at this, it could feel overwhelming. So if you have not seen our grammar and conventions matrix, I want to show you another way to look at C.4.1. So this is a screenshot from our grammar conventions matrix. If you haven't seen it, it is literally C.4.1 in matrix form. It identifies where each of these skills are introduced. For example, organizations, monuments, and landmarks should be capitalized. That is grade 3 introduction. I will say once a skill is introduced, it can be assessed. So people often ask like, well, when is mastery? Okay, cool. That's when it's introduced, but when do students need to have it mastered? Assessment can happen once it's introduced. So 3rd grade SC ready, students could be assessed on appropriate words and titles. Again, this is just kind of a cleaner, quick version of C.4.1. They don't have information different from each other. It's the same, just in a different viewing format. Something to say and I forgot, but let's talk about what grammar instruction could look like in instructional practices. So we have just a couple of tips for you. Number 1, you want to teach grammar with authentic writing. So to make it stick, connect it to their writing. Introduce new concepts as students reach the editing stage of that writing process, so that they can apply concepts authentically. Focus on usage over terminology. What does it matter if they can say that's a comma, that's an apostrophe, if they don't know how to use those things, right? Teach and assess one skill at a time. We don't want to inundate our students with sets of rules and practices. We want to give them time to really learn, practice, and apply those skills. Scaffold learning through practice and application. Start small. Have students practice skills on individual sentences first. Great book we can recommend that our team's reading through right now is called The Writing Revolution. And it does a really good job giving examples of how to start small at that sentence level. Engage with high interest mentor text. Cannot encourage this enough. Have students read with that purpose, that eye for specific grammar examples. Reading in this way helps students internalize grammar and develop good editing habits. You want to model concepts for students, show them how things are used in action, emphasize that sentence combining, and then don't mark every error. I remember I was going to say about the grammar convention matrix. One thing that I love about it is that once I look at it, I found that when I was teaching, I was often over expecting from my students. I was expecting them to do things that maybe they weren't quite developmentally ready for. And I think it just gives us a really good measure of like, hey, students aren't ready for that yet, right? We don't have to mark every single thing in their paper, even though as English teachers, that's where our mind goes, right? We want to not necessarily red pen it, but we see everything. But it's not always appropriate to point everything out. If you have ever heard of Jeff Anderson, he wrote a book, well, several books, but one's Patterns of Power. And KC is going to put his website link in the chat, but he gives some easily implementable steps for teachers to encourage students to read and analyze author sentences through mentor text. And he does it through a series of what he calls invitations. So I thought this was, a strategy worth noting. The first thing is give students an invitation to just notice. Have them read a sentence you provide and give them think time. Ask students to share with you anything they notice about the sentence, what they like, they don't like, parts of speech, figurative language, anything that stands out to them. Give them an invitation to label, circle, identify, label something specific in the sentence that stands out. For example, if an author uses a series of adjectives separated by commas, they might label parts of speech or the punctuation. Give them an invitation to revise. Talk with them about how revision can take a great sentence and make it even better. Encourage them to think about how they might revise that sentence. This really empowers students to see themselves as experts on the same level as the published author. And then finally, the invitation to imitate. So once they've looked, they've noticed, they've labeled, they've revised the author's sentence, they can write their own. Tell them to write a sentence just like that mentor sentence, because imitation can be an excellent way for students to expand their repertoire of writing skills. All right, 6.1. I was a little nervous about this one, cursive writing. All right. There's a few things to notice about C.6.1. In grade 3, students are expected to write in cursive all uppercase and lowercase letters. And in grades 4 and 5, students are expected to demonstrate fluent and legible cursive writing. So the instructional practice that I want to walk through here is really more informational, but then we do have support coming that I'm really excited about. So a couple things, I just want to give you a little bit of history about cursive writing, because we get this question a lot, like, really, do kids really need to still be writing in cursive? So here's where this comes from. In 2008, cursive was in the standards, but it was not meeting the extent that the Back to Basics law required. And in 2010, when South Carolina briefly adopted Common Core, if anybody remembers that, cursive wasn't included at all. And that's why it wasn't taught in South Carolina. And a lot of people, still to this day, will say, oh, we don't teach cursive in South Carolina. But really, it came back after we had something other than Common Core. So in 2014, we passed the History 2014 Act number 275. And in section 2 requires cursive writing instruction. It also requires multiplication facts. So there you go. That's in that law too. In the 2015 standards, cursive was introduced in 2nd grade. In 3rd grade, students were asked to connect upper and lowercase letters efficiently and proportionally in cursive handwriting. But for the 2023 revision, our writing team was tasked with making the handwriting standard more complete, with stronger vertical articulation and support. So that is how we got to the cursive standard that we have now. Now, just as a side note, your high quality instructional materials for 2nd and 3rd grade districts are able to use state funds to adopt handwriting support materials from Zaner-Bloger or Danielian. Additionally, many of the high quality instructional materials up for adoption for each district include handwriting support within their high quality instructional materials for reading and writing. So that support is available there. In addition, I do want to show you, this is the vertical articulation of this indicator. And notice that we intentionally begin with 3 years of explicit print instruction to support later success with cursive writing. Cursive instruction begins in 3rd grade when those fine motor skills are more developed. We meet the law by requiring fluent, legible cursive writing skills by the end of 5th grade. And then indicators for handwriting do extend through 5th grade. Now, we know they're going to probably still need some more help after 5th grade. Especially middle school, sometimes I couldn't identify anything they were writing, but this is how we meet the law to address that communication piece for handwriting. Now, The good thing is we do have support coming. Mandy has written an unbelievable handwriting support document, and we are asking for feedback on that document. So the review window would be May 15th through 30th. And then there would be one virtual meeting on May 30th at 3:30, virtually on Teams, and then feedback would be submitted Google form. So anyone with elementary experience in teaching handwriting is welcome to express your interest in this committee to provide feedback. And upon completion, excuse me, you get 4 hours of credit renewal. So if you are interested, go ahead and Casey put the link in the chat to sign up for the handwriting support document feedback. We are excited to get help in making sure that that is as effective as it can be. All right, 7.1, we got 2 more. We got a quick, fast, and in a hurry. 7.1 is oral presentations. So a few things to notice. Grade 3, we're presenting information orally for a variety of purposes. Grade 4, students are expected to present for a variety of purposes and audiences. And then in grade 5, present an opinion is added, as well as the logical sequencing of ideas. Students are also expected to identify the purpose of information being presented. So my instructional practice for you today, this is on your note catcher, and Casey's going to put it in the chat, but is an indicator aligned oral presentation rubric, and this one's specifically for grade 5. If you'd wanted, 3rd or 4th, you could just adjust to match that indicator expectation. But this first picture would be what the teacher used to score students during oral presentations. But it's always super important to make sure that students are planning intentionally and then reflecting intentionally. So there's a part 2 that is the student outline and reflection, where the first part students would complete before building the presentation, and then the second part would be after delivering the expectation. So just an example of a rubric that teachers could use to score students' presentations, but also encourage intentional planning and feedback. And then our very last of the 10, Amy, yes. Casey, will you put the landing page back in the chat for me? Thank you. A few things to notice about 9.1. The expectations for evaluating and critiquing concepts interactively through listening and speaking have been revised heavily for developmental appropriateness. So you'll notice that progression in 2023. Obviously, a lot less happening in the 2023 standards as far as wordiness goes. Everything that's highlighted in 2015 now exists in 2023 at grade 6 or higher. Okay. But I do want to point out there is a leap from 2nd to 3rd grade. 2nd grade is opinion, 3rd grade is claim. So that language does shift from 2nd to 3rd grade. So our 3rd grade teachers need to know that, hey, students are used to hearing opinion, and now you're going to be talking about claim. So let's take a look at an instructional practice, the expectations for each grade level. 3rd grade, identify. We're at 4th grade, identify and explain. And then 5th grade, determine by identifying and explaining. So just wanted to see what a progression of this could look like. Check the glossary to make sure you know what exactly is being asked. And then we can look at this progression. So just identifying a speaker's claim and at least one supporting reason might look like, Jeremy thinks dogs are the best pet because they're fun to play with. We move to 4th grade, where we identify and explain. Jeremy thinks dogs are the best pet, my identification. This means that he likes dogs more than any other pet. He supported his claim by sharing that he believes dogs are fun to play with, they're easy to feed, and they help keep their owners safe. So we moved into that explanation. Finally, we're determining if the speaker's argument is effective. I think Jeremy's argument is only partly effective. There's that determining. I agree that most people believe that dogs are fun to play with, but I don't think they're always easy to feed. Some people would not like that responsibility. Also, some dogs are too small to help keep their owners safe. So you can see just one example of how the expectation of rigor progresses. All right, so think just about your communications pieces and give me a wow and a wonder. What are you excited about? What are you questioning? Pop that in the chat for me. Thank you, Debbie. Lots of great info and resources. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Janice. Debbie, that's a great wonder. How do I most effectively share with all of our teachers? Yes, teachers will be excited about the resources. The glossary is super important. Yes. All right, friends, we're going to go into some clarity and closure. Marianne, that is a great comment. Thank you for said, more of those explicit examples to show the differences. Thank you, Becky. So in our purpose for today, we really wanted to set a lens for really seeing those shifts in 3-5 from 2015 to 2023. So 2 things I want you to do is just consider what's your next step, and then consider what support you need. So I'm going to put up our feedback survey. If you'll take a moment to please complete the feedback. Again, my name is Brenna McCormick, and this was the top 10 noticings for 3-5. So Casey put the link in the chat. You can also scan it if you want it on your phone. But I'd love some feedback. If there's any additional support, any other suggestions, please submit them in there. Yes, Melissa. And Mandy says, we appreciate any way you all can support and coach the use of these resources we share. We can't be everywhere. You guys are the ones in the trenches doing the hard work. There was a lot of coaches in here today, which we certainly appreciate. We're always available to help talk about things or help you find things, access things, talk through implementation plans. All you gotta do is reach out. My team will listen and linger for a few minutes, but as you complete the feedback form, you are welcome to go. Denise, yes, there is a professional learning library already on our State Department website that has all previously recorded webinars, and every series we update that, so they will be on there as well. We also have a State Department YouTube channel that's not super easy to find, but they're all on the YouTube channel as well. Thank you, Casey. Casey put the professional learning library in the chat for you. So again, we're here to listen, linger, answer any questions that you may have, and we appreciate you spending an hour of your Monday morning with us. Janice, we don't have those. I just created a grade 5 one for this as an example, but you can take that template and adjust it for those indicators. And when you do, you can send them to me, and then I'll send them to everybody else in the state. No, but I can put that on my list of things that we can get to. I'll give you credit, Janice. I'll say Janice sent me these. Oh, great question, Marianne. We do have our summer webinar series already planned. Team, somebody wants to put that in the chat for me. We are going to break it up by grade band. So there'll be the Foundations of Literacy series. We'll have a middle school series that points out some big shifts there, rhetoric, per point of view perspective. And then there's a high school series on writing instruction. Now, part of that series, the very first one, is open to all grade levels. So that's a great one to come to. It's the micro, mini, macro webinar. That is all grade levels. The rest of them are going to be specifically aligned to high school. But Mandy, write that down. They want writing support. So that could be an offering that we have in the fall.
Also, I've been participating in the close readings for the different subject areas. I don't think I've seen the math one though. Did I miss that one, or have that one not been pushed out yet?
It's next week, Marianne.
Okay, I did. I just
Yes,
haven't gotten
yeah,
it.
that
Okay.
one is me, and it is next week. Y'all cross your fingers and wish me luck, because I'll be talking about math and close reading, and
Right.
it's been a
Right,
few
yeah, I'm
years.
looking forward to it. Yeah, I've enjoyed all of
Good.
them, so I just want
Yes.
to make sure I didn't miss that one. Okay, thank you. I'm also excited. I didn't know about the Right Guy podcast, and so I do know Jeff Anderson, but I never thought to look up his podcast. The Writing Revolution. That's a book y'all are reading right now. Who is that by?
I have it right here. Where am I
So,
writing?
Marianne, that book was shared with us from our development partners as just something that we could all, as an ELA team, read together,
Mhm.
just to see how it can inform
There you go.
us. Brenna, do you have it? You pulled it up?
Yeah, it's right here. It's by Judith Hockman. I'll put it in the chat, but this is,
Okay.
I'm trying to, there it is.
Okay.
There it is.
Hoffman. Okay.
Yes. And Natalie Wexler. It's a real
Wexler.
easy read too, like one of those books that isn't too technical.
Uh-huh. What is y'all's feelings? I know this is a touchy subject.
Uh-oh.
About